What's up, everybody? My name is Charles Cosetti, aka Saint Mesus, because I want y'all to see Jesus in me. Today, we are continuing our study of the book of John with the 6th chapter, where Jesus fed 5,000 people, walked on water, and told people he was the bread of life. Some people didn't take too kindly to that. We'll see how it all unfolds right now on the 11th hour. All right, Jesus feeds the 5,000. Sometime after this, Jesus crossed into the far shore of the Sea of Galilee. That is the Sea of Tiberias. And a great crowd of people followed him because they saw the miraculous signs he had performed on the sick. Then Jesus went up on a mountainside and sat down with his disciples. The Jewish Passover feast was near. When Jesus looked up and saw a great crowd coming toward him, he said to Philip, "Where shall we buy bread for these people to eat?" He asked this only to test him, for he already had in mind what he was going to do. Philip answered him, 8 months' wages would not buy enough bread for each one to have a bite. So they're traveling. A bunch of people saw Jesus is performing all these miracles, so they're following him. They're there for the lights, camera, action. And he realizes, these people are gonna get hungry at some point, and he says to Philip, "Hey, how much you think it's gonna take to feed all these people?" He already knew what he was gonna do, though. That's what the word says. Another of his disciples, Andrew, Simon Peter's brother, spoke up. "Here's a boy with 5 small barley loaves and 2 small fish." I love that it's even, not only that it's only like 5 loaves and 2 fish for 5,000 people. They're small loaves and small fish. But how far will they go with so many? So Andrew's like, here we go. This is what we got from this kid, but I don't know it's almost like maybe we shouldn't even show nobody, because then a couple people get to eat and everybody else is gonna get pretty not happy. So Jesus said, "Have the people sit down." He's like, "I got this." There was plenty of grass in that place, and the men sat down, about 5,000 of them. Jesus then took the loaves, gave thanks, and distributed to those who were seated as much as they wanted. He did the same with the fish. So not only did he wasn't like giving out small, he was like, take as much as you want. Wow. When they had all had enough to eat, he said to the disciples, "Gather the pieces that are left over and let nothing be wasted." So they gathered them and filled 12 baskets with the pieces of the 5 barley loaves left over by those that had eaten. So not only did everybody, out of 5 small loaves and 2 small fishes, whatever. You got 5,000 men that we know. It says 5,000, but a lot of theologians and scholars actually estimate that it was most likely they counted by the heads of the family. So in other words, the men. So you got the women, the kids. It says there's a kid here, right? So there's estimates that it could be even up to maybe even 20,000 or more people. But it doesn't matter. Even if it was 5,000, even if it was 500 with 5 loaves and 2 fish, small ones at that, and there was still 12 baskets of leftovers. That's a doggy bag for you right there. After the people saw the miraculous signs that Jesus did, they began to say, "Surely this is the prophet who is come into the world." Jesus, knowing that they intended to come and make him king by force, withdrew again to a mountain by himself. So Jesus is already understanding they're gonna misunderstand. He's like, nope, that ain't what I'm here for. So Jesus walks on water. When the evening came, his disciples went down to the lake, where they had got into the boat and set off across the lake for Capernaum. By now it was dark, and Jesus had not yet joined them. So remember, he had went off to a different mountain. A strong wind was blowing, and the waters grew rough. When they had rowed 3 or 3.5 miles, they saw Jesus approaching the boat, walking on the water, and they were terrified. But he said to them, "It is I, don't be afraid." Then they were willing to take him into the boat, and immediately the boat reached the shore where they were heading. Next day, the crowd that had stayed on the opposite shore of the lake realized that only one boat had been there, and that Jesus had not entered it with the disciples, but that they had gone away alone. Then some boats from Tiberias landed near the place where the people had eaten the bread, and the Lord had given thanks. Once the crowd realized that neither Jesus nor the disciples were there, they got into the boats and went to Capernaum in search of Jesus. All right, so Jesus went away, most likely to pray and be alone. He did that quite a bit. And the disciples leave and start heading out. They're about 3.5 miles into this body of water, and they see Jesus walking on the water towards them. And obviously, for obvious reasons, it freaked them out. And he said, chill, it's me. Again, that's the MIV. So they were like, okay, true that. And he gets in, and instantly they're on shore on the other side where they were heading. All the other people that were like, there for the free medical treatment and show and with a dinner, they're like, yo, where'd he go? So they all get in their boats and start trying to search for Jesus. When they found him on the other side of the lake, they asked him, Rabbi, when did you get here? How'd you get here, bro? Jesus answered, I tell you the truth. You are looking for me, not because you saw miraculous signs, but because you ate the loaves and had your fill. Do not work for food that spoils, but for food that endures to eternal life, which the Son of Man will give you. On him, God the Father will place this seal of approval. So Jesus is like, bro, you guys are just looking for me because you're hungry. He said you had your fill, you woke up, you went to bed on a nice full stomach, you woke up and you're hungry, and you're like, yo, where's the guy that gives the free food? And he's like, nah, I'm not that guy. Like, you're missing the whole point. Then they asked him, what must we do to do the works God requires? So again, they're not bad people. They're missing it. Jesus answered, the work of God is this, to believe in the one he has sent. So he said, look, man, all God's really asking of y'all is to believe in me, the one that he sent. So they asked him, what miraculous sign then will you give that we may see it and believe you? What will you do? Our forefathers ate the manna in the desert, as it is written, he gave them bread from heaven to eat. Now, before I go into what Jesus says back to them, how crazy is it that he just did what he did the day before? Not to mention, they saw his disciples cross in a boat, but not him, and he's over there. Which, okay, maybe he got another boat, whatever. But he just fed all these thousands of people with 5 little loaves of bread and 2 little fish. What miraculous sign? Crazy, man. Anyway, like, we have the worst memories, and it's a human condition. That's why we can look here and read this and be like, man, I wouldn't. Nah, most of us would be the exact same. Most of us still are the exact same. Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth. So a lot of times when Jesus starts a phrase with that, he's like, listen, this is important. Basically is what he's saying. It is not Moses who has given you the bread from heaven, but it is my Father who gives you the true bread from heaven. For the bread of God is he who comes down from heaven and gives life to the world. Sir, they said, from now on, give us this bread. So kind of like the woman at the well a few chapters ago. She's like, when he's talking about the water, right? And she's like, let me get that water, I don't have to keep coming to this well. Jesus then declared, I am the bread of life. And I am statements, there's, I believe, 7 of them in the book of John, and this is the second one, because I guess the water would have been the first one. The living water, that's the one I'm talking about. I am the living water. This is I am the bread of life. There's 7 I am statements within the book of John, if I'm not mistaken. When Moses asked God for the name that he would tell who sent him, he told him, I am. The I am has sent you. So there was multiple meanings in what he was saying. He was very specific with his words. And don't forget, he just said, literally, like, I tell you the truth. Like, this is important. I am the bread of life. He who comes to me will never go hungry, and he who believes in me will never be thirsty. But as I told you, you have seen me and still do not believe. All that the Father gives me will come to me, and whoever comes to me, I will never drive away. So he's saying, if you get it, you'll get what I'm saying. If you know the Father, if you know God, then you'll recognize me. For I have come down from heaven, not to do my will, but to do the will of him who sent me. And this is the will of him who sent me, that I shall lose none of all that he has given me, but raise them up on the last day. For my Father's will is that everyone who looks to the Son and believe, S-O-N, Son, not the sun in the sky, and believes in him shall have eternal life, and I will raise him up on the last day. You got to remember the audience he's speaking to. These people know the words of Moses. So when he's saying, look to the sun, when the Israelites were following Moses through the desert and they started getting all these venomous snake bites, Moses, instructed by God, made a staff with a snake on it out of bronze to lift up, the same way Christ was lifted up on the cross, the same way. And anyone who would look to it, would look to that, would be healed. Same thing. Again, that was a force. You can either say as a foreshadowing of Christ, or you can say Jesus is referencing back. Doesn't matter. Either way, he knows his audience and he's speaking in a way that if they're devout and they actually love God, meaning they would love the words of God that I just said about Moses and things like that, the teachings of Moses, they would absolutely recognize him and say, oh, this is the Messiah that we've been waiting for. At this time, the Jews began to grumble about him because he said, I am the bread that came down from heaven. So now some people are starting to have an issue with it. They don't, they're taking offense to what he's saying. They said, is this not Jesus, the son of Joseph, whose father and mother we know? How can he now say, I came down from heaven? Stop grumbling amongst yourselves, Jesus answered. No one can come to me unless the Father who sent me draws him, and I will raise him up at the last day. It is written in the prophets, they will all be taught by God. Everyone who listens to the Father and learns from him comes to me. No one has seen the Father except the one who is from God. Only he has seen the Father. I tell you the truth, he who believes that has everlasting life. I am the bread of life. Your forefathers ate the manna in the desert, yet they died. But here is the bread that comes down from heaven, which a man may eat and not die. I am the living bread that came down from heaven. If anyone eats of this bread, he will live forever. This bread is my flesh, which I will give for the life of the world. So now people about to get really bugged out, because now he's at face value sounding like he's starting like a cannibal cult, Then the Jews began to argue sharply among themselves, how can this man give us his flesh to eat? So, they're taking it literal. He's speaking in a metaphorical way. They're taking it literally. Jesus said to them, I tell you the truth, saying, listen, this is important. Unless you eat the flesh of the Son of Man and drink his blood, you have no life in you. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood has eternal life, and I will raise him up at the last day. For my flesh is real food, and my blood is real drink. Whoever eats my flesh and drinks my blood remains in me, and I in him. Just as the living Father sent me, and I live because of the Father, so the one who feeds on me will live because of me. This is the bread that came down from heaven. Your forefathers ate manna and died, but he who feeds on this bread will live forever. He said this while teaching in the synagogue of Capernaum. So he's in the synagogue teaching some heavy teachings. Okay, even as I'm reading these, I can imagine maybe if someone has never heard this, like, whoa. But what you have to break down, all right, is Jesus often spoke in parables. Jesus often spoke metaphorically, and he did so in ways that he had to. He knew what was in hearts. He had a way. He was trying to separate who was really there and who was really a true follower, who was not going to deny the miracles and things that he did in front of him, all the prophecies that he was fulfilling. This was a hard teaching. I would say this is arguably, if not definitely one of the most hardest teachings. But again, he just fed people. bread. So he's very calculated. He does a miracle, he takes 5 loaves of bread, feeds thousands of people. Then they come and he says, listen, you got this all wrong. First of all, I'm not gonna be your war king. That's why he left the day before. He already knew they were gonna try to make him some like a worldly king and rise up and be a king of force is what the word says. So he's like, I'm not that. That's not why I came here. Matter of fact, I came for the opposite reason. Ultimately, I came to lay my life down. So 1, you're missing it there. 2, I'm telling you right now, I gave you this little free meal so that I could use that as an illustration, basically to tell you I'm what you're looking for. I'm what's gonna fulfill you. Your hunger and your thirst has to be for me and my word and ultimately my way. Follow me. And yes, at face value, eat my flesh, drink my blood. Yeah, I get it. It's like, whoa. But he's doing this to people that he just fed. And he's saying, you don't get it. I'm what you're searching for, not another free meal. You have to want me even if I'm not going to give you free food. Even if I don't do another miracle. How many miracles I got to do in front of you before you recognize? That's what he's saying. He's basically testing them, kind of pushing them a little bit because he's trying to separate the real from the fake. And he does this a lot. And because of that, on hearing it, many of his disciples said, this is a hard teaching. Who can accept it? Aware that his disciples were grumbling about this, Jesus said to them, does this offend you? What if you see the Son of Man ascend where he was before? The Spirit gives life, the flesh counts for nothing. The words I have spoken to you are spirit and they are life. Yet there are some of you who do not believe. So he's saying, does this bother you, what I'm saying? Basically what I just addressed. Does this bother you? I speak spirit. The Spirit gives life. He's saying the words I have spoken to you are spirit and they are life. Yet there are some of you who still don't believe. Like he's saying, y'all seen so many miracles already. You've seen. And he said, I'm speaking in spirit. The words I have spoken to you are spirit. So he's saying, listen, I'm spiritually giving you guys, I'm not saying I'm saying I am the bread of life. I am the way to eternal life. I can keep doing miracles for you, but you're missing the point. This ain't the bread that you're gonna die. You're gonna be hungry again if your whole life is about your next meal or your next physical need, you're missing the point. He's saying, I'm the fulfillment of that. For Jesus had known from the beginning which of them did not believe and who would betray him. He went on to say, this is why I told you that no one can come to me unless the Father enabled him. So he already knew. It's like God had already pre-chosen, selected the specific people he was going to have help build this church, help build, be Jesus's 12 disciples. So Jesus, he already knew who was going to stay and who wasn't. He also knew who was going to betray him. From this time, many of his disciples turned back and no longer followed him. And the thing is, he already knew that. Again, he was thinning the herd and separating the real from fake because he had to focus on, as we go on, you'll see, he's teaching them, he's training them. And he's like not sugarcoating it. He's like, yo, let me just get the hard stuff out the way so I can just see how many of y'all are really, And again, he already knew, but he was just showing them what he already knew, basically revealing to them, like helping them with it. Like, let me help you with this. You're not about this. You're about free meals and you want magic shows. I'm not here for that. I have a much bigger purpose. I have a much more important calling, and I gotta focus on the people who actually get it. So he says, you do not want to leave too, do you? So he turned around, like a lot of the disciples turn back and no longer followed him. And he says, you do not want to leave too, do you? She's checking. I love this response. Jesus asked the 12 that. One of the best responses, man. Peter puts his foot in his mouth sometimes, and we'll see that as we read through. But man, he hit a grand slam with this one, and it was just so. And the reason why he puts his foot in his mouth, because he no filter. He's just genuine. I mean, it's probably what I would have said, or I mean, it's just authentic. Simon Peter answered him, "Lord, to whom shall we go? You have the words of eternal life. We believe and know that you are the Holy One of God." He's like, we found you. Where are we gonna go? Why would we want to go anywhere else? You're him. You know, he's him. Like, nah, we're good. We don't want to go nowhere else. Then Jesus replied, "Have I not chosen you, the 12? Yet one of you is a devil." He meant Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, who, though one of the 12, was later to betray him. Man, just keeps getting better. That was the book of John, chapter 6. Had quite a bit going on here, from feeding 5,000 at least, to walking on water, to telling people he's the bread of life and you gotta eat his flesh and drink his blood. I mean, some pretty heavy stuff, man. And really, again, just separating the real from the fake and finding out. And you know what? That's actually probably a perfect segue for me to bring something up as far as separating the real from the fake. I'm bringing this study over to my More From Mises channel. So if you have not gone and subscribed to that channel, it's literally More From Mises. It's super easy to find. I'm going to be continuing this study on this channel, on my St. Mises channel, for a few more days. It's a channel that was built on music and making music. And the way the algorithms work, it's not the most efficient way to do this. The best way to do this is to build a channel solely based on what kind of content is going to be the major focus of the channel. It's better to just build from the ground up. So again, More From Mises. If you're not subscribed and you want to continue to see these, go subscribe. But that's it. You guys know, as always, if you have any prayer requests, put them in the comments. If you guys have any, I mean, there's a lot to talk about in this, so let me know what your guys' thoughts were. I'm definitely reading them as much as I can. Some of these testimonies are really powerful, so keep sharing those. Other than that, I just hope y'all have a blessed rest of your Sunday afternoon, and I will catch y'all tomorrow at the 11th hour. Peace.